Hello everyone. Hello. Welcome to your first session of the day at the Teams and Culture stage, which is powered by Women in Data for both days here at Big Data London. For your next session, we have an absolutely awesome panel here for you today to take a financial services spin on how AI reshapes the landscape with insight, strategies, and how inclusive leadership principles are crucial to building responsible AI. Our panelists will cover 3 key topics, including transparency, explainability, and accountability. I am going to hand you to hear directly an introduction from each of our panelists. Dara, I'll come to you first.
All right, thank you. So my name is Dara. Hopefully everybody can hear because it's quite noisy. My name is Dara. I'm the head of AI and model management at HSBC. I work in markets and security services. I have a team of AI developers and people who build lots of new solutions. And I also have a team of risk managers as well who make sure that all of that's done safely, responsibly, so on and so forth. So let me pass it to you.
Hi, I am Sheetal and I hope you guys can hear me as well. So I'm the Chief Platform Owner at Nationwide. I've been at Nationwide for about 11 years now, and I lead a team of platform owners, business analysts, and they usually work with the business trying to identify all the processes that we can land on our data and AI platform.
Hi, hello everyone. Can you hear me-ish? Yes? Cool, nice. My name is Karen. As you can see in the front, a very proud South African here. So I work at Lloyds Bank as a data scientist. I used to work in Responsible AI, and now I'm doing Responsible AI within business unit.
Oh.
Yeah? Can you hear me? Yeah,
You're
okay,
back,
cool.
yeah.
And now I'm doing, I guess, Responsible AI from a technical point of view in a business unit.
Good. Okay. So this is a format I don't think any of us have experienced before. So get ready, everybody. We will leave enough time, certainly at the end, for questions. We're very interested in hearing what you have to say. That's always the most interesting part for me, certainly. What we're going to do is take turns, 8 minutes approximately apiece, to kind of quiz each other in depth on one particular topic within this overall domain. And that's it. So I'll go first. I'm going to start off. If you see us looking at our phones, it's because that's where the questions are that we want to dig into. So not checking my email yet, at least. So first topic we're going to talk about is kind of transparency and ethics, right? And so one of the things that I was saying to my panelists in kind of prep is that the 2 things we tend to think most about, I find, in terms of my development team and others we work with, when it comes to ethical AI, which can be pretty high level and pretty broad, are transparency and explainability, right? So I'm interested in learning more from you 2 about, do you have a similar experience when you think about ethical AI? Mm-hmm. What are the topics that kind of leap to mind and that you focus on the most?
So I think it is really important that you focus on the purpose and the values. So values of your organization, human values, when you think about how you want to develop the AI capability for your business processes. So I think it's really important that you bottom out what benefits this AI is going to deliver and how you center it again against the human values. I think that is really important. It is also important that you look at the core AI principles of fairness, transparency, explainability, which is really important, and usability, because end of the day, it's business users who are going to use this, adopt this into their processes, and it needs to be easy for them to use as it is with their processes currently. So I think it is really important that you align to the values and to the purpose of deploying an AI capability.
Yep, 100% agree with that. The only kind of additional flavor that I will give is, so we do something at Lloyd's called, it's not a Lloyd specific thing, but consequence scanning workshops, where it's like you kind of go through both with your business and your technical team to try and understand what is the absolute worst thing that could happen that we either could account for or maybe could not account for. Because I think something that's really difficult is trying to codify ethics into software or into a model or into something that is pragmatic. And I think what is really helpful with something like a consequence scanning workshop is you start off with whatever the values are: inclusivity, transparency, whatever the case is. You work through the use case because, of course, whatever your use case is will then also depend on how you need to be solutioning and how you then need to be accounting for transparency, explainability, fairness, etc. And so I think going through that process is helpful both for development teams because you start with ethics by design, so it's not an afterthought. And actually the way I kind of describe this to my dev teams that I work with is in the same way that we have to do unit testing, whether you like it or not, you also have to do like fairness testing as well. And so it's just part and parcel of that design process. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, two things I want, that really, really interesting. So two questions I have kind of off the back of that.
Yeah.
One, what do you do, both of you, in terms of your teams or your institutions, to make it easier for people to, when it comes to things like transparency or explainability, whatever it might be, are there specific things you do to make it easier for people to meet those kind of objectives, or does everybody have to kind of from scratch figure out, oh, how am I going to build that in my model? What metrics should I be using?
Yeah. Cool. I can start with this. So I guess one of the joys of working in a massive organization is that everything is firewalled. And so the cool technology that you may want to use that is open source and like easy to use is not immediately available. So we do a lot of the like, ooh, okay, do we build this from scratch? Do we go through a vendor? Do we go through like a sometimes long governance process to get access to the open source framework, whatever the case may be. And that's always a lot of fun and not at all frustrating. But usually what we then do is we have some kind of central team. So this is the function I was in a couple of months ago, which is we're now building out ethical AI tooling or responsible AI tooling. So everything from your kind of traditional ML systems where it's like we have the business context, so we know what we're going to be using. It's a bank, so we're unlikely to be using computer vision. So we already know, cool, we're not going to be using that. We can already start to zoom in on what is applicable for our business and then start to get feedback from use cases in terms of, okay, is this tooling actually useful? Like, do you get value out of it? What are your requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how I've seen it work at Lloyd's. I imagine if you're a smaller company, you can be a bit more nimble with it, but yeah.
I wouldn't know either. Yeah, I know. Same challenges, basically.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is obviously with transparency is clear documentation, right? So always ensuring that you've got up-to-date documentation. It's not technical because most of your users are non-technical. So how do you support your non-technical users in terms of providing them with this, tools to be more transparent about what the AI is actually doing?
Yeah, that brings me to my favorite topic, which is like scalability. So, documentation, very important. All of the monitoring, the testing, very important, right? How do you do that, though, without slowing down progress and everything you want to kind of develop? I don't know if either of you have any insights as to how you might have tried to get around that, or...
Yeah, I don't have a great answer, but I have an answer, which is that it kind of very much depends. So I actually think it's better to go quite slow at the beginning to build out the foundations properly, because one, you avoid a whole bunch of technical debt later on because you rush to develop something, and two, you get a much more, I think, well-rounded understanding of what exactly you're trying to solve for. I think because Gen AI and agentic AI and, whatever comes after that is, everyone is like, oh, I'm so excited, like, let's use it. We're now in a situation where it's like, you don't need Gen AI for everything. You don't need agentic AI for anything, or for everything, rather. So what is the right tool for the right kind of problem? And I think that's really where we're starting, or trying to get back to, is that kind of like fundamentals, first principles. What are we actually trying to do? What is the value? If the value is just test and learn, like we want to try and deploy this technology at scale, and that's it, let's be very, very clear about that, because then we're going to be maximizing or prioritizing certain KPIs as opposed to your kind of normal product development. I think is probably the big one.
Yeah.
But not a great answer.
No, that's a very good answer. I mean, I feel the same way. I don't think anybody has the solution, right? But I think everybody knows that it has to lie in terms of like technology, right? It's got to be build your platforms out in a way that allow you to kind of build things quickly and kind of plug and play when it comes to things like testing and monitoring and metrics and documentation, and make all of that as automated as possible. Otherwise, there's no chance, right? And so I kind of tell my data scientists all the time, it's like, these are the most interesting problems in a way. They may not seem like it at the outset. How do you test? How do you document efficiently? How do you automate all of this? But if you don't solve that, you can't do any of the other stuff that is conceivably maybe more interesting to you, right? So that's the stuff that really I think has got unlocked value. I think that's sort of my 8 minutes. So can I turn it over to Sheetal to kind of lead the next?
Yeah, of course. And I think my section is around explainability and usability. So that's my theme for today. Obviously, making AI understandable and usable across diverse teams is really important. So my question to you both is, how would you tailor AI education for different audiences, from technical teams to business users?
Okay, shall I start? Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So I think of kind of two bits of training, or fundamentally, like, you can't get around them and you have to do them for as many people as possible, right? And one of those is sort of responsible AI. So AI 101, what are the risks? What are the potential kind of mitigating factors? And what do you need to know to use this stuff responsibly at like a very baseline level? And this is sort of some of the stuff that you see the EU AI Act kind of, mandating, basically, right? And I think it's really important across the entire institution, whether you're technical or not, whether you're going to use any AI or not, ultimately, you need to know that. And then the second is kind of each individual solution we develop and roll out, end users, before they can get access to it, have to get a training in the specifics of that tool, right? So they have to understand the limitations, what you can use it for, what you can't use it for, what data you can use it for, how you can use the outputs, whether or not you could share it with, clients externally. And that's really, really important. And we're finding that is really the linchpin that holds all of this together in a way. Because that's the play, like, you have to trust users to understand what they should be doing and kind of controlling themselves and their own behavior in a way that you never did before when you were rolling out maybe machine learning models that you had one or two end users in the quant space or the trading space or something like that. After that, like, all well and good to have many, many different programs in terms of like how the level that people want to educate themselves up to, I suppose. We find that kind of giving people options and kind of providing material, direction, like these are recommended courses, whatever, that really is kind of the best way forward, as opposed to trying to mandate everybody do stuff at a role-based level or anything like that. So I don't know, what are your experiences?
I think that's a great point, because it goes beyond technical training, right? Whenever we think about AI projects, we think like we need to upskill our people so they are technically competent, but it's also all about understanding the implications of AI and how you should use it properly. I don't know what your thoughts are. Karen.
Yeah, I was at a conference earlier this week. Actually, we were at the same conference, and someone was reflecting on how they do, I guess, responsible and cybersecurity training in their organization. And how they do it is essentially depending on how you like to learn. So if you're quite a visual learner, or if you're I forget what other types of learning are available, but whatever your kind of learning style is, they have created like bespoke kind of learning paths for that. And I was like, wow, that's actually so interesting. Another tangent, a couple of weeks ago, I was on a training, and it felt like such a luxury to be taught by a human being in like 3 dimensions. Like, I could touch this person. Not that I did, because that's inappropriate, but like we were in the same room, and I was like, wow, a lot of the stuff that I kind of know about already, I had self-learned, and like I'd never actually been taught this by someone. And there's so much value in just, being able to have a conversation with another person about a thing that you've learned. And so I think, coming back to like the value of social learning. So trying to make sure that you're able to have these conversations like within your team, or have like lunch and learns, or just wider conversations outside of just, yes, I've done my training, yes, I've got my GCP or my whatever certificate, and like I'm qualified, I've passed the fit to fly test. I think that's a really big one. And the other thing is, I think perhaps on a technical point, is being able to understand why things break and how to break them is a really kind of key learning. Because I think it then makes it easier to communicate like why a system will fail and whether or not something is actually feasible from a technical point of view, which I think again helps to manage expectations from your like product owners, your business units, etc., etc. So that's my other 2 cents.
That's amazing. So building on that, what do you both think about having human in the loop for making AI more usable and trustworthy within your organizations?
Human in the loop, yeah. Back to my scalability kind of pet peeve or whatever, bugbear. Yeah, it's really important. And I think goes back to at the end of the day, a lot of the solutions that we are developing and a lot of the solutions that people want to see, want to get their hands on, particularly when it comes to Gen AI, agentic AI, it's kind of, process automation, it's making their lives simpler and easier, but it's always with them kind of receiving something and being able to vet it or look at it or kind of do whatever they need to do to improve that content before it goes somewhere else, before it drives a business decision. So I think most use cases by default, you kind of wind up with a human in the loop.
Yeah.
The more interesting ones that we're starting to work on, and in my area in particular, we work in kind of quantitative analytics in the front office of a trading business, and there you're seeing more people begin to get interested in, okay, this is great, but actually my use case, it doesn't have a human necessarily at the end of it. Maybe it's an algorithmic trading model or whatever it might be. So what are the controls and things you need to put in place then when maybe it's not a human in the loop before a decision is made, but afterwards where you're able to kind of look at a log of decisions that were made, maybe reverse positions, trades, if you didn't agree with them. So yeah, where you put that human in the loop, I think, is the interesting question that's beginning to appear versus previously it was just like, well, humans just got to check everything before anybody uses it and that's it.
Yeah, 100%. To touch on your point around like the scalability of human in the loop, and I think we often mean like an expert in the loop as opposed to just a regular human. I ran into this fun conundrum a couple of weeks ago where, I don't know, pick something just very in the detail. Accounting standards, everyone's like absolute joy to read and get to terms with. I have a Gen AI application that can summarize, I don't know, some accounting standard. If I am the human in the loop, we are in trouble because what do I know about any kind of accounting standard? But I know that there's a team of accountants, a handful of whom are really experts on this specific standard. It doesn't make sense to be deploying all 2 to 3 of those experts en masse every time we're trying to deploy this kind of solution. So again, like, what is the role of the human or the expert in the loop, and what is the kind of accountability that they sit with? Is it just in terms of determining whether or not the outputs are right or wrong? Humans make mistakes, humans get exhausted, you have a bad day, maybe you made a bad call, and now, cool, you have a massive issue. Even though a human did have a look at it and the human said, yeah, hunky-dory, this is good to go. So what then happens? Is the accountability on the human who was in the loop? Is it on the developers? And I know we're going to talk about accountability after this, but yeah, that feels like a bigger kind of question. And I think at least 6 months ago, it did feel like you could kind of have the rubber stamp of like, oh, we have a human in the loop, therefore this POC is fine, therefore, the product that we're designing is okay. But yeah, we're coming up to the limits of that very, very quickly.
But clearly that shows a lot of complexity, right?
Yeah.
So how do you both think the complexity of AI models can be explained to users who need to use and understand and trust these outputs? So what can be put in place to help our users
I mean, that's
deal with the complicated
days worth of discussion in and of itself. I think there's a kind of couple of different levels of explainability that you could think about, right? First is just saying whether or not AI is being used at some part of the decision-making process or whatever else. And I think that's not always, everything is now becoming a bit more AI by default. And that's sort of both to be expected, but also a bit dangerous if people don't realize exactly the extent at which they're interacting with, let's say, a chatbot or something, right? Yeah. So I think, number one, that's really important. And then we could talk at length in terms of the methodologies you could use and the techniques to help your AI be more explainable. I would just say the most important thing is use the simplest kind of model or tool available to you, because they will, by definition, wind up being more explainable, more transparent. And this rush to kind of everything needs to be Gen AI, everything needs to be agentic, we're actually seeing people kind of realize, you know what, what's the point? If I can get that result from a really basic machine learning model, a neural network or NLP, I just prefer to do that because it's easier to control, it's easy to explain, there are plenty of tried and true ways to do that. And when you start thinking about something like agentic, there become so many points of kind of failure and other things you need to do to understand effectively how the output is coming about, that it's a challenge that is sort of harder to justify to the people making those decisions to approve something or not, and it's a work in progress.
Yeah. I honestly don't have that much more to add. 10 out of 10 to everything you said. Coming back to, I guess, the consequence scanning workshop, like I feel like this is, again, really helpful to do at the start because you've started to map what things can go wrong, like how likely or not they may be. So you already have a baseline kind of expectation of what the worst thing that could possibly happen. And so then you start to develop like some of the resilience strategies around it. So, wow, we know that we're going to deploy a chatbot. That chatbot may well swear. What are we going to do about that? And so once I think you start to map out like what the potential risks are, you can then think about what the mitigants are. And coming back to the point around explainability, understanding the limits of what that actually means. I think when we talk about like traditional ML systems, we can have explainability at like a global level, so like how the model works overall, and then also at a local level, so how does it work for a specific instance, like a specific customer interaction, etc. With Gen AI, that's a lot harder because these models are probabilistic by nature, and yes, there are things that you can do, but you're never going to get the same level of reproducibility. So again, explainability to what extent and to whom, like who needs this to be explainable? Is it because the regulator's asking for it? Again, like be very careful about what you're deploying. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I think that's my 8 minutes, but I think the key point that we have tried to drive home there is that explainability is what builds trust in our AIs that we deploy, and usability is what will help drive impact. So I think those two go hand in hand and clearly very, very important. So I'll hand over to you, Karen.
Amazing, cool. So I already gave a bit of a spoiler. We're going to talk about accountability and trust. All right, so to kick us off, what does accountability look like in your AI workflows, both from ideation all the way to deployment?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, accountability in AI isn't that different from accountability for any other sort of business decision, right? Like ultimately, the users of the model, the users of the AI are the ones that get the benefit and also get the pain if something goes wrong. And so all of this needs to be a business decision at the end of the day to say, yes, we want to invest in this AI model to solve this problem because it's going to add this ROI. And I understand the risks and the potential benefits enough that I can make an informed decision, to say, go ahead, right? Yeah. And that's been the interesting kind of, the learning, I think, to date that we have had, certainly, and I think other companies are the same, is it used to be that everybody was talking about having kind of a singular center of excellence of data scientists or developers kind of at the middle of an institution, and they would just kind of be the ones that built everything and solved all the problems for the people out here, and then that was it, right? And one of the things we've learned is the importance of having the business involved at all of those steps in the process, right? From kind of planning it out, the ideation of it, the design of a solution, and then really understanding from a technical standpoint as well as everything else, what are those risks and limitations and issues that could surface, and therefore am I comfortable being the accountable executive, right? Saying, sure, I want all of my people on my trading desk to use this model to drive our activities. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is multi-layered. I think you need technical safeguards, you need organizational governance structures, you need to ensure that there's ethical oversight. Is this the right thing to do just because you can do it? And then to your point, through from ideation to deployment, make sure that your business users are on the journey. They understand the problems that this capability is trying to solve. They have opportunity to provide feedback, so there's good feedback loops, which means that you can always use that to improve the capability, so it's not a one and done thing. It's something that changes and improves with the feedback that it gets.
Yeah, 100%. I like exactly what you both said, and it's like nothing is really new. Like the technology is new. Risk management is not new, especially if you're a very regulated industry. This is kind of bread and butter stuff. So yeah, that makes sense. All right, how do you involve business users early enough to ensure that the AI solutions that are being built are actually embraced and trusted?
Yeah, I think going back to the point I was just trying to make, co-creation of the idea, making sure your business stakeholders are part of the workshop. It's not completely tech-driven. It's driven to solve an actual business problem. Making sure that when you build the capability, there is suitable monitoring and risk management frameworks in place, ensuring that there is throughout your prototyping, POC phases, you've got business users involved so they can provide feedback for continuous improvement. And always celebrate the learnings and the wins together with the business. So it's not a tech-driven capability. It is something that the business users feel part of.
Yeah. I see we have 5 minutes left, so I'm going to answer and then see if we want to turn it over to the group, I guess, if they have any questions.
Yeah.
Sort of what I was saying before, one of the things that we have learned is that the best ideas for new solutions, for AI solutions, come from the business themselves. They come up with the ideas because they're the ones most intimately aware of the problems they face, the inefficiencies, and we allow them to identify those opportunities, decide to prioritize something, and then work with whatever technical teams they need to develop those products versus the other way around is what I would say.
100%.
Good.
Awesome. Do we have any questions from the audience? Nice.
Sir, oh, there we go.
Hi. Are you on?
Yes.
Without saying data loss, what's your biggest fear with AI, and what's your most pushback from the business with adopting AI?
Most pushback from the business with adopting it. I mean, to be honest, it's never pushback from the business. It's only enthusiasm to kind of get more and more quickly, I would say, right? And it's almost like the tension that we're always kind of fighting is we want to make sure we're doing that, but in a way where it's responsible, we're sure it works properly, and that everybody knows what they're doing before they get access to it. But I've never honestly, it's never been pushback. It's always the other way around.
I feel like a similar sort of thing where it's like, I think if anything, there's more pushback on the safeguards or like the guardrails, where it's like, no, we want to innovate at pace, or we don't want this to slow down innovation because we're so excited about this technology. And so you kind of feel like people are a bit more like gung-ho and like more willing to take on risks.
I would say rigor. It can be very slow because people are like, but we really want to know. So can we see this? Can we know more about the cyber controls or how you're testing it or what metrics you have in place to monitor? But that's never really the business's they're always just...
Yeah, and the only point I would make on that one is that if your business users are not involved earlier on in the journey, if it isn't a problem that they're really facing day to day that they want to solve, you will find a challenge with adoption. So make sure that you co-create
I would say some
those
stuff
ideas.
doesn't land well always, right? Where a lot of people, I'll give you an example where you develop some tool and it tends to be like narrower maybe than they were expecting, and they're like, well, why can't I just ask it anything and get any answer? And it's like, okay, that's not what we actually were developed. It's what we agreed at the outset when we decided to build this thing. So sometimes that can fall flat and you wind up iterating a little bit, but that's more kind of product development, isn't it?
True.
Absolutely. Any others?
Hi, I've got a question about leadership, and as leading your, and as you're your.
Oh,
I think it's working.
you can just come here and lean in.
As you're leading your teams and the excitement of the business and so on, do you spend more time with humans or more time with your growing and excitement of AI in terms of as you go up that leadership chain to become more senior? Which is the one that takes priority for you? Is it AI or?
Oh my God, I spend all of my time with humans, and frankly, I wish I could spend more time with Python or with papers or whatever, frankly. I don't know how others feel.
No, I 100% agree with that. I think it becomes more about managing stakeholders, the expectations,
Your teams,
managing
the
your
developers,
teams,
yeah.
providing strategic direction, and less about how you can get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not a leader. Like, I don't manage anyone. I'm not that high up the leadership food chain. So I spend more time with the technology, which is nice, except after like 3 days, I have a bit of cabin fever. And I'm like, oh my God, I just want to talk to a human being. And so it's cool, like, when everyone's in the office and then you can do that, you can do the brainstorming. But no, I think I'm a bit more on the other side of it. Yeah.
Good. That's probably
Thank
it,
you,
yeah?
everyone. Unfortunately, we do
you.
have to wrap it up there, but what a fantastic session. Thank you so much to our wonderful
Thank you.
panelists. And please do join us again here at the Teams and Culture stage at 11:20.